week's episode, we're going to talk about finances and how they work in relationships. And from relationships and a marriage standpoint, finances are such a, I guess, interesting topic of discussion when it comes to two people sharing finances or sharing bills or sharing how things go financially in a relationship. So when it comes to how the finances work in relationships, um, sometimes I guess it's tricky navigating something like that. And I guess this is kind of where we add our perspective to it, right? So when it comes to how finances work, do you guys think that it's one standard way of finances in relationships? Who wants to go first?
I go first. It's not one standard way in a relationship of how finances work.
Okay.
I think it's part. You have to communicate how you are gonna do the finances first, and then come up with a plan. But it's not. It's more than one way.
Okay. Okay. I mean, and with you, I would kind of agree, but I think that sometimes with finances or when money is concerned, sometimes I think that individuals may say, "This is my money, and this is your money, right here. Like this
Right.
is your money, right?" So, is there a standard way of like bridging that gap? Because I know we said communication, but is there
So
any
the
other
standard
method of
way
doing it?
is to me. I would think the standard way is since this is your money versus my money, then y'all just have extra checking account where y'all can just pay the bills out of.
Huh? What you guys think? Do you think that way works? Energy,
Uh,
energy.
Nrgy definitely would know better than me for sure.
No, you have your own perspective.
uh, for me, so it's hard to say, right, for me because I think this would be from like based on a marriage kind of standpoint. But if I'm just dating someone, I don't even think that far because my mom always told me if you let a woman control your money, like that first time, it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be a rough, it's gonna be a rough marriage or if you plan on being with this person long term. She just always told me if you let a woman basically have that control or that say so of your finances, then she's gonna control it like forever. Uh, so I kind of really stick to that narrative because it's hard for me to let anybody control any type of my money. So it's just tough. I don't think I can do that. That's not where my mind goes as far as uh, in a relationship. I get that you have to be prepared, right, going into a relationship as far as finances. But as far as even if you make more money than me, I just still feel like if my money is mine, I'm not there yet.
Yeah,
I'm just not there yet.
yeah.
I just can't
But
see it.
but my thing is I'm gonna help you picture it a little bit, right? Like that's my thing. I'm gonna help you picture it a little bit. So what if hypothetically, right? You was
Mhm.
living with your person, right? Y'all got this apartment together, and you had to you pay this, I pay this situation or whatever. Is that similar to what you're saying, or is that different?
So it's similar, yes, right? It's similar. But if there's a point where I want to go to the mall and spend $500 off because of my money,
Yeah.
it's going to annoy me if I hear something like, "Well, why are you spending $500? Like, why is that necessary?" That I'm gonna have a problem with that because I just know my personality is not gonna adapt to that well. Um, so
Yeah.
if
See?
I want to spend $500 of my money, I don't feel like I have to ask you, should I? Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
just, just put it like that.
Yeah. But again, I think that's something I haven't really experienced yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's the stage of life you're
mhm.
in.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I
But
can't see it.
but honestly, it makes sense, I guess, depending on what stage of life you're in. Like,
Right.
is the thing, because if you're like dating or like in just a standard relationship, then I guess that premise wouldn't, I guess, make sense to you, right?
Right.
But from the other side of that, which is, marriages and, people that are on their way to marriage, what do you think, Nrgy? Like, what's your take on that?
Yes, I don't think that there's just one way to do money, to work with money, to involve money in relationships, because I do believe that whatever works for one couple may not work for the next couple.
Right.
Personally, and I'll speak on both the standard relationship versus being married. When it comes to a standard relationship, in my opinion, I don't believe that the finances should be shared or combined or intermingled at all. But when it comes to being married, then in my opinion, I do believe that it should be one pot. Everyone or both people puts their money into one pot, and then all bills and expenses are then paid out of that one pot. Um, just my opinion.
Okay. What? No, 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 no. Okay.
My perspective, I'm, I think it just depends on who you are. It depends on the relationship.
It do. It
It
does.
does. It really does.
I think it does to a certain degree. It just kind of depends on the relationship. But I mean, if you honestly look at the premise of a committed relationship where you have to share finances, or even a marriage where you have to share finances, can you really say that there's a such thing as this is mine and this is yours, right? Like, can you really honestly say that if the premise holds true that you're supposed to be like a team,
Yeah,
right? Like you're supposed to be a
So
partner.
you can still be a team and have your own separate stuff.
You
That does
can.
not make you not a team because you decide to have your own separate finances. You can discuss like we can discuss the finances. We can discuss what it looks like for us. We can we can discuss what it looks like for us. We can discuss all those details. But I can, in my personal opinion, I can still have mine. He can still have his, but we still have to come together to make sure things in the household and everything else work correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and most times I would agree with that. I just think that sometimes when couples say this is mine, this is yours, sometimes people take that too far. You
yep.
know, like they like they take that too far to like some people get in their head that once you draw that line there, that's on everything, right? That's not just finances. That's every other aspect of your relationship too. Oh, this yours, or this is mine over here too, or this is yours over here too. And sometimes, to a certain degree, that does happen. Not to everybody, but that does happen. So, how do you prevent that, right? Like, how do you prevent saying that this is mine, this is yours, from affecting every aspect of your relationship? Like, how do you prevent that?
Well, my thing is you would have to, first of all, if it's a very new couple, then I don't just have it. You be like, that's mine. Like, that's just out of habit. So that new couple will have to get in the habit of, them being this one and already, in that marriage or that committed relationship. But if it's an older couple and they still on that mine and yours and they really like somewhere you're gonna have to draw the line. Now where you draw the line at, that's gonna be up to the couple. That's an individual conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's gonna cause a conflict.
Yes, it is. But but that's the question though, right? Like
Right.
how do you avoid
How
the
you
conflict?
avoid the conflict?
Yeah, like how do you
Yeah.
avoid the conflict? Because there has to be a way of avoiding or preempting these things from happening, right?
Well, yes, and that's true. But the avoid the conflict, it just I think it depends. It's an individual person. It's an individual couple's conversation that they would have to avoid that conflict. Especially if one person feel like, well, everything is theirs and nothing belongs to us, and you gotta have some type of conversation about it. That's the only way you're gonna avoid a conflict of it. You can't ignore it because eventually it's gonna come out.
Mm-hmm. Would you guys agree?
So for me, to avoid it, well, okay, when couples separate, their income, well, this is mine and this is yours, then it's implanting or creating an internal division that can, continue to weave its way throughout the relationship over time.
Mhm.
In my opinion, healthier relationships are where both people are committed across the board, not in everything else, with the exception of finances. When you start having those exceptions, that's when the relationship itself is not even on a solid foundation. um so let me also explain what I mean by person A puts their income in the same pot as person B, and then all the expenses are paid out of that. That's totally fine, even if both people want to have their own spending account that they both have agreed, it's coming from after the expenses are paid. Then we both can give each other a quote unquote allowance, or however you want to describe it. And then, so therefore, what Black Egypt was saying, where if person A wants to go out and purchase something, they don't have to necessarily get permission from person B because it's not coming out of the joint pot. It's coming out of what has been uh, allowed. I can't think of a better term right now, but it's what is in each person's allowance that both people have already agreed upon after the combined expenses has been paid. So yes, people can still have their own individual accounts, but that's after the fact. That's after, the whole shebang has been put into that one pot first, and then things are
Allocated.
spread out, so to speak.
Allocated.
Allocated. Thank you. I was like, come on, what's the word? It's been a long day. I told you about that earlier.
No, it's okay. You was doing it. Okay, I knew where you was going with that.
Appreciate the help. Because I'm like, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, I knew where you was going. Like you was cooking on it. I knew it. But I mean, but that's the thing. Like when it comes to finances from any relationship standpoint, it's personal, right? So you work for your money, and you take that you take it seriously, because you do have to recognize that certain individuals may have different spending habits.
Right.
Right. So some people may like to spend a little bit more money, then the other person might be frugal. Like they may not want to spend no money at all. So to me, I think that that's a conversation in itself right there, is your spending habits, right?
Absolutely. And that goes with getting to know the person first before you even marry them, or before you marry your finances. That's a part of that process of learning, what the other person's money habits are. Yeah. Just like anything else,
Yeah. But again, that's the thing. So even if you do know that person's spending habits, obviously two people are not going to be the same. Right. So it's like this person may spend more, this person may spend less. You have to merge those two people into a committed relationship. And you still have to figure out how you're going to have this person spending nothing, this person spending a lot, and not spending, or pretty much spending just enough to keep the household like solid or moving forward, right? So I think that that's a conversation in itself too, because like I said, you're not gonna be able to change the person's spending habits.
100% it's a conversation. It has to be, just like Aphrodite was saying earlier, too. You have to talk about it, but even with that, you have to get to know the other person's money, money mindset. And then once you learn that, once they learn what yours is, you learn what theirs is. And if they're totally different, then of course you both commit to creating your new money mindset that works for your relationship, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
But
whatever's agreed upon, then both people have that responsibility to operate within that agreement moving forward when it comes to spending money.
yeah, yeah. So, but this is a twist to spending habits, right? So, say for instance, and this is a hypothetical thing, right? You're in a relationship with a person. Obviously, they have different spending habits or whatever. They end up spending the majority of their allotment, and then they ask you for money.
Hmm.
But since you're in a relationship,
That don't mean you can't say no.
Right, exactly.
So they just
It's
out there
called
just,
learn a lesson.
they
There
just
you
out there just
go.
busted up. Like they just make
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it's like just think about it. If you keep doing it, like you create that habit and you keep doing it, they're gonna keep what? Coming back, correct?
Yep.
So it's called boundaries. Create that boundary. So they know, like, man, if I do this, this is what's gonna happen. It's a boundary. And it's okay to say no.
Even if it's your spouse.
It's okay to say no. The word is great. That's a great word.
Everybody agree with that?
Yeah, so this is the thing, like if it's something that, one person ran out of their allowance of money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because they're spending it on personal things like whatever they may want, purses or golfing or beer, alcohol,
Frivolous
whatever.
stuff
And
that
whatever.
frivolous.
Huh?
Stuff that they could save their money.
Exactly. If they're spending it on that and then they're coming to the other person saying, "Hey, I ran out of my, allotted amount of money," then the other person has every right to say, "Well, no," However,
Right.
if the other person is saying, "Hey, we're trying to purchase this thing for the house and this is going, this is something for us, for the relationship, for the home, for the kids, for whatever," and they may have been trying to just do it out of their own personal allotment, then that I can totally understand. But if it's just frivolous spending, then no, like just like Aphrodite said, no, you better learn how to budget that money. It's called budgeting.
It is. It's budgeting.
Yeah. So let's hit Mr. Black Egypt down here with something. Like this is hypothetical, okay? I'm gonna hit you with one, right? So you're in a relationship with a person. Obviously you've been, dating this person for a while or whatever. So you guys are like really, really, know each other. Same premise, right? Like they want to buy something, they don't have enough money. They come ask you for money, right? Like, is it that same premise where you don't provide that money, or you just say no?
I don't think there'll be a relationship. So because it's so there's so many different variables, right?
It is.
This is because this seems like a very touchy subject, right? And it's very emotional attached, and for me, so because you know, so for me, I look at it like this, right? You have to have some type of discipline, like as an individual first, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to learn how to budget. You have to learn how to, you know, spend your money wisely on your bills, allocate for yourself first. So I think you have to pay attention to these particular flags. If a person is overspending, they're spending, they're always out enjoying their life of entertainment. If you know, they're drinking a lot, or they're you know, going to the movies, hanging out with their friends. If they live a fancy lifestyle, like Nrgy was saying, like they're buying these bags, you know, you can, you know, visually see that they're just not good with their money, then that's something you should consider, because there's just so many different variables when it comes to this, because this is serious, right? This is a very serious thing, because I just feel like, you know, there's a lot of failed relationships, a lot of them. And money is probably on the top of the list, you know, as far as relationships. I would see that, you know, being a factor, because there's so many different details. And I think you have, as a person, you have to start with self first, work on that as far as control, how you know, allocate your own money. And then when you decide to get into a relationship, you can have some type of foundation where it's not something you argue about. You can kind of just communicate it in a healthy way. But for me, if that was the case, I wouldn't be in that relationship. Like, it's not like the third, fourth thought for me. It's just, if you know, yeah, I just think it's too important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And like I said, that's understandable with like the different stages of life. Like that's understandable, because everybody's I guess stage in life is going to be different when it comes to I guess the dynamic of the relationship. And like I said, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's really not. But I guess the basic premise of all this is that, you know, a conversation like needs to be had about certain things that happen centered around finance. Because if you're with the person, it affects everybody. It just doesn't affect one person.
That's true.
So much, it's so many different variables. It's just a lot. I'm just thinking, like, I'm thinking, and it's just like, I can't, it's just, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. Because I'm not playing that game. But, you know, but when you're actually married in the relationship, I think it's over communicating. I think I could see myself being in a relationship, as far as that, the money part, where we just label everything like, okay, this is for an investment, right? We keep that here. This is for a vacation, you know, this is for an emergency. This is for individual entertainment. This is for our entertainment. This is for, you know, the rent or the mortgage, or, you know, it has to be labeled like all the time, communicated all the time. And I think that's the healthy way to go. I just think this is you know, there's just so many different things, because I've dated women who've made 3 times more than me, and they don't mind helping me out and doing this and that, but then there has to be some type of balance. Like, you can't do that all the time. Like, where do we find the balance? So, and then it's been the other way around, where I've made 3 times more than this person. So it's just, you don't want to get to that. You don't want to be that person who's doing everything, and then you don't want to be that person who feels like they're doing everything. So I think it's over communicating. Relationships seem so difficult as we're talking about this. Yeah.
I mean, no one ever said that, you know, relationships are gonna just be like, you know, roses and rainbows every day. No, nobody ever said that. Like, it takes work. Like, it takes consistency.
Yeah.
And that does not mean that, you know, the work and the consistency that you're putting in is a bad thing. It's not. because when from a relationship standpoint, if you put in work and consistency, it grows love. Like it grows affection. It grows that connection between you and that person when you do those things. But that's what you have to focus on because okay, so this is the thing from a relationship standpoint. Sometimes when people get into relationships, their mindset does not change.
Yes.
So if your mindset is not changing over once you enter into that relationship, you're single, like in the mind, like you're single, like you're operating like you're single.
Yes.
What is
what? Hallelujah.
You sparked something in energy that time.
Because that goes to so many things. I'm not gonna let me let you finish. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good. Go ahead. What you
But
got?
that right there is, if not the only reason, the main reason that contributes to what Black Egypt said of why relationships are hard. Because relationships don't have to be difficult. They don't have to be hard.
Yeah.
But let's just use the topic for today, finances. Black Egypt, you were actually describing an amazing method that can help the financial aspect of a relationship not be hard by allocating, okay, this is the money that's going to our investment. This is the money that's going to a new vehicle. This is the money that's going to your personal spending. This is my personal spending. This is the money we're going to allocate for, groceries. This is the money we're allocating for emergencies or life insurance or whatever. The plan, if people properly plan in advance and then commit to the plan, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That takes away so much of the mess, so much of the noise, so much of the unnecessary stuff that people and relationships go through. It's for lack of planning. It's for lack of committing to the plans and not switching the internal mindset of the individual from no longer being single, which is the people who say this is my money, that's your money. That's a single-minded statement and mentality. So for those who don't make that switch, you're going to have these types of problems.
Agreed. Yeah. But like I said, with finances and stuff, like I said, that's part of it. But I mean, again, this is the big perspective part of this conversation is how do you navigate finances in relationships? So let's talk best practices here, right? Like what's the best practices for people in a relationship or people that are pursuing being in a, marriage or relationship? What are the best practices for those people? Like, what do you think the best practices are? I know one is, effective communication.
Yes.
Around finances or spending habits, I guess. So what are more best practices for those people that are on that trajectory of commitment? Like,
so I just want to expound on the spending habits. When if you know that your partner has a difficult or very different way of spending their money versus what you do, I would think you can come up with a plan so it can help both you all, but it won't be an issue with the spending habit. So even if that's going to a financial class or, taking up different, creating like budgets are different. So even if it's creating a different budget, because that might work for them and you too. Different things, like just coming up with something different to help them, because you're going to have to be on the same plan, especially when you're trying to grow.
Yeah.
When you want to grow and you want to move. So you want to be on the same plan when it comes down to your financials. So if that person does have those spending habits and you recognize it up front and y'all have a conversation, y'all can also come up with a plan where maybe you can put it in place where we can do a financial class together.
Yeah.
And that could help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
But I also like the committee, like when Egypt expounded on the committee, because we can create this plan, but we're not committed, so it's not going to work regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So planning, right? Planning. That would be
Yeah.
one of those steps. Then from planning, as Nrgy said, like discipline.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
or committed rather, right?
Yeah. So what exactly about discipline though? Like, what do you mean by discipline?
For just staying true to what the plan is, right? Staying
Okay.
true to, you know, what is being allocated, what is being spent. I mean, sorry, I just thought about my own personal budget. Mine went from on and off, but so yeah, just sticking to your plan, you know, as much as you can. So
Yeah.
is that hard for you know, for you all to stick to it, you all's plan right now, like in your present moment?
Sometimes it is for me.
Josh,
That.
Nope.
No.
Because every dollar, and to answer the question that you were asking, Josh, and to tie it in with what Black Egypt was saying, the reason I can say that it's not hard is because every dollar has a job. So if I know what's coming in and I know what my goals are, I know what things I need to purchase, I know what things I need to pay or pay off. Every dollar that comes in has a job. It's already has an identifier on it as to where it's going to go. And because I don't want to get in financial trouble, then I'm going to stick to my plan, because that's the point of me having a plan, to make sure that things don't get out of whack, to make sure that I don't overspend in any particular area, to make sure that I'm not just spending spontaneously because of the emotion of, oh my gosh, I see this item that I've wanted for so long and it's finally on sale. Like, no, I'm going to make sure that I exercise that financial discipline, just like you were saying as well. And then also just understanding that sticking to a plan and being disciplined and staying committed to whatever my plans are, seeing how effective it works in other areas of my life, then I'm going to make sure that I just, wash, rinse, and repeat, so therefore I'm not having any random out of left field issues with my finances, because I'm not using those same traits of discipline, committing, planning, as I do in other areas of my life. So it's like, if it works, if it's working over here, then I want it to work over here as well. So yeah, and then to add on to what Aphrodite was saying, in addition to like a financial class, another thing that will also help to answer the question, Josh, is for a couple, if necessary, to speak to a coach, counselor, or therapist, especially if one person is having difficulty with understanding the importance of budgeting, or having problems with understanding why their partner is a certain way about money, because we all have our own money psychology based off of our experiences, our past, based off of just things that we've been through, based off of what we've learned from our parents, from our community, from our neighbors or roommates or whatever. And so sometimes it will be helpful for a couple to seek a little bit more help, through, like I said, a coach, counselor, or a therapist, in order to get a deeper understanding of each other's money psychology, and to see if there are any issues that are rooted in their financial makeup that's hindering their relationship and the finances in their relationship.
Yeah.
So for me, sometimes it is difficult for me to actually stick to my budget, and that's the truth of the matter. Everybody is different, I am an emotional spinner, so I had to learn a little bit differently from everyone else. So I had to learn what works for Aphrodite, not like what we might go to the counselor or the therapist and might say. No, I had to figure out what actually worked for me in order for me to get it right. So what I personally did was, even if I go on an emotional spending, I set myself a budget. I don't go over the budget. Even if I spend $1, it's crazy for a person who's an emotional spender. It's crazy. Like, even if they spend $1, it's like, oh my God, it just fed that emotional issue that they were having. So once you understand what your issue is with the finances, then you have to approach it like that, you know, because everybody has a different issue. For me, I'm an emotional spender. So like, if I get too out of whack and like too stressed, I'd be like, oh, I need to go shopping. But I know, like, I got this, I got $50. That's it. If I got $50, that's all you can do after that. You can't do no more. So I would do it. You know what I'm saying? But it's been a time, honestly speaking, like, I don't spend 300, 400, 500 on the emotional spending. And then turn around and was like, oh, girl, you crazy. Like, sending stuff back. Honestly, because I was on the emotional spending conversation. But it's been a time that I had to realize you can't do that no more. So it just depends on the individual. But once you realize it, then you have to do something about it. And that's the truth of the matter. Once you realize it. Do I have hiccups sometimes where I don't stick to my budget? I do. I do have those little personal hiccups. Do they happen all the time? No. But do they happen? Yes.
So can I ask you a question? Do you think that, not you, but generally speaking, for emotional spenders or just people who spend, you know, whose finances are out of whack, do you think that going to a counselor, therapist, or a coach can be the tool to help them understand the why to their issue?
Yes. And I'm not saying a coach, counselor, or therapist won't help. That's not what I'm saying. So yes, would it help them? Yes. When you understand, it's just the point of, when I was going through my personal conversation, I just had to figure that thing out for myself. Like, I knew I had that issue. It's not even a problem it's not even a conversation about Aphrodite having that issue, because Aphrodite got that issue. But also, I had to figure out why I got that problem. And it's not like, the crazy part is, once I got by myself and got in my quiet time and was able to really rewind that conversations and situations, like, I realized what it was. I went from one emotional thing to another. Because at that time, I used to be an emotional eater. So I went from not being an emotional eater to being an emotional spender. That's just like a person who smokes. They might stop smoking, but they eat all the time.
Yeah.
So it varies. So do a therapist or a coach, yeah, that can help. I'm just saying, from my personal experience, I didn't want a therapist. I just needed to figure that thing out. It was just like bothering me, because at that time I had spent about $500. So I was like, oh no, you can't do that. Like, you just went over the limit for real. So it's like, no, you need to figure that thing out. So that was my personal experience. But it does help when you have somebody else and give their perspective. Because when you're in a relationship and you're trying to talk to your partner about finances, and if anybody ever been in a relationship, everybody know finances can be a hard conversation to have with your partner. But it's good to have that third party there to say, no, they're not saying this. Because people hear what they want to hear, and they hear something totally different from what their partner is saying. So to have that third party there to say, that's not what they're saying. They're saying this right here. For it to get communicated effectively. And then they can be on the same accord to come together to make sure those finances work for each other.
Good point. So this seems like a really healthy conversation for about, 99% of the people in the population. I just wonder how this conversation is for very, very wealthy people.
Okay, so you're saying that you wonder how this conversation would go for people that make like what, 6 figures or something?
Yeah, just money is not an issue, right? It's sure this is still healthy for them, but I just wonder like how that conversation goes, because in some cases there are times where we want to stick to a budget, right? We want to stick to this, but sometimes when I go in the store, I don't like feeling like I have a limit. Sometimes, like, you
Restricted.
know what I mean, like the psychology of it, like, I don't like feeling broke. Like I just want to. It's not saying that I'm being impulsive, right? It's just I don't have that thought pattern where it's like I can't do this because it's this much money. If I want to give myself the gift, then I'm going to do that. Okay. Hmm.
I mean, honestly, to me, to answer that question, if there's a difference between being rich and wealthy,
Right. It is.
but like there's a difference, right? So a person, if you're rich, right, like you can spend a heck of a lot of money and be broke just as easily as you can be rich.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a mindset thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's where you're at mentally to see if you want to go from being rich to wealthy.
Right.
And to be wealthy, you have to be disciplined. You have to be consistent. You have to be at a point where you want to grow what you have.
Hmm.
So it doesn't. It's not an actual tangible money thing more than it is your mind, like your
Yeah.
mindset or where you're at. Because you can have, less than 6 figures and still have a wealthy mindset,
Mm-hmm.
like
True.
and want to, invest and want to save money.
Yeah. So
But go
even
ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, not to cut you off. Not even
Yeah.
if the matter of saving, I've heard very wealthy people say they don't save money.
I mean, that's their choice, but I mean, eventually, money depending on. Okay, it depends on how they got their money, pretty much. Because, like I said, if they got their money from things that constantly give them residuals, like passive income, then they wouldn't say that because they're going to get that money in every month or whatever they would work or whatever. But if you got one lump sum that this is all you're going to have for the rest of your life, I mean, eventually money does run out depending on your spending habits. Like it does. But it's still gonna come down to like how disciplined you are with the money that you have. Like that's the thing. Like everything is gonna come down to discipline with the money that you have.
Okay.
I mean, that's to me, that's my take on that. But to add to this whole conversation that we're talking about with finance and relationships and how it works from that standpoint, to me, I think that if couples have like, biweekly finance meetings together and talk about the household finances, that would actually make things a lot better. Like have a breakdown of the finances, where we are this week, or whatever the case may be. Because a lot of times, from a couple standpoint, a lot of times when you're working and you're making money and all these other kind of things, you don't know the breakdown. Because honestly, for some people's dynamics, one party pays all the bills. Like they pay all the bills or they pay all the expenses or whatever, and the other person may not even know how much anything costs. Like that's not their thing. But if you have a bi-weekly meeting or a monthly meeting about finances, both parties are on the same page about what's going on in the household.
I
And you may
strongly believe both parties need to know what's going on. Even if they don't pay all the bills, they still need to know because you never know what might happen to your partner that you see, and things happen.
yeah,
You just never know.
yeah,
Both parties need to know how to pay the bill, when to pay the bill, all that good stuff. What finances are what both parties. It's extremely important. Both parties need to know.
yeah, yeah. And you're right. I think that's kind of what we were saying. But it has to be structured in a way where everything's identified for both parties, right? Like this is how much this is where it pays, this is when it has to be paid. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times things are not structured like that from a relationship standpoint, and information gets missed because you're relying on the person to relay the information to you and they're not giving you the whole story. So that's kind of why it's important to have breakdown meetings in relationships so that both parties have a, I guess, have a fair say in what's going on in their household, right? So to me, like there's so many different ways of attacking this particular question when it comes to finance and relationships, but it's going to come down to how these finances are communicated, when they're communicated, and your particular mindset about finances, right?
Right.
Okay. So this episode of Adding Perspective was great. Like I said, we talked about a lot of different aspects of finances. So I'm glad we had this opportunity to talk about it. The listening audience is gonna love this. So again, another episode in the history books here. So I'm Josh. Everybody introduce themselves.
I'm Aphrodite.
Coach Nrgy.
I'm Black Egypt.
Adding perspective.